Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. I'm here with my guests, Dr. Corey Petty and Barry Gitarts. We'll be right back after this brief disclaimer, so stick around.
If it's bull or bear, I don't care. It's quite a rough ride, just like life. But I'm kind of patient, 'cause only time will tell. It's gonna go up, so you better stay calm. And grow your coins, you gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. Grow your coins, you gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. Grow your coins, you gotta grow your coins. Grow your coins, grow your coins. Grow your coins, you gotta grow your coins.
What's up, everybody? We are back in chat. See, Corey's going to be in chat. That's cool. You have done this before.
Yes, I have.
Welcome, gentlemen. I was doing some kind of digging around a little bit on you guys, and you guys are involved in a project called Status, obviously, but you guys do a little bit more than that. I guess we'll start with Corey. Let's go into your background a little bit. Who are you? Why are you here? Why does everybody give a shit about what we're about to say?
Oh man, let's see. I was doing a PhD in computational physics like 6 years ago, I'd say. Found out about Bitcoin based on the kind of fun computational problem it was solving, and did the whole proverbial down the rabbit hole. Started during my postdoc in Brazil, I started a podcast called the Bitcoin Podcast. And then that kind of gave me an introduction to a lot of different people as I researched the tech, and kind of fell further and further and further, and kept doing that for a long time. Decided to leave academia, pursue blockchain full time. Went through a couple government contracting agencies to teach them Bitcoin, and then left that to join Status, because it's kind of
government agencies did you teach about Bitcoin?
I didn't teach the agencies themselves, just the people who were at those agencies. So I went to a couple like contracting companies, and then basically made sure that people who are in cleared spaces didn't sound like idiots when they talked about Bitcoin.
Okay. And just for the record, so because I've had a couple people ask, this is not paid. These guys didn't pay me anything. I have them on because they're interesting. We're just going to shoot the shit and learn some stuff.
Pay you.
Nobody paid me. Go
ahead. I joined Status because it was a project that kind of fit what I wanted to exist that didn't exist yet, and so I'm real happy working here.
Okay. All right, Barry, how about yourself? Did you get that shot? Did you take a shot yet?
I actually did not, but maybe I'll grab one in a bit.
Slacking. All right. So tell us a little bit about you.
So I think what's most relevant is maybe what got me down the rabbit hole was when I first heard about Bitcoin, let's see, somewhere around 2012. I read the white paper. It seemed interesting, but, always thought it was some kind of fringe idea. But then, like a lot of people, I kept coming back to it. And this was all the while I was working, I've worked for financial institutions, building trading systems and analytical systems for them, fintech startups, real estate startups. But then one thing that I read about Bitcoin specifically that got me interested, and there was one core developer at the time, I think he's no longer on the Bitcoin project, but Mike Hearn, was the idea that, and he said he spoke with Satoshi about this, of smart contracts. And it would always seem like an interesting idea to me. And I always just thought that they were eventually going to integrate it into Bitcoin. By 2017, and yeah, I was following along the whole time. And, by 2017, things started to get really crazy. Ethereum was already around for a while. And I said, I can't just follow this from the sidelines. There's just too much going on. So I jumped ship. I went to work on this full time, first at Consensus, and now here at Status, which is been a interesting and exciting ride the whole time.
Interesting and exciting ride. So tell us a little bit about Status. I mean, like, what exactly is it? I mean, it looks like a kind of a collective of different functionalities and services overall. I mean, if I were to attribute anything to Status, I would consider it basically a community with features.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of grasp what it is based on what it's set out to be. I think in the beginning, it was the goal during its ICO was to become a mobile Ethereum OS. That means that basically people with their phones could interact with the Ethereum blockchain in various ways, right? They could browse dApps or decentralized applications. They could chat amongst themselves, as well as have a wallet they can use on their phone. And since phones are in everyone's hands, that was the kind of goal. But it turns out because they're lightweight devices or resource limited devices, giving that access is kind of hard, especially in a decentralized context. So we're still along the lines of that goal, but we're trying to find different ways of providing it so that phones can do it.
I'm supposed to ask you about that chandelier, Barry.
This somebody had made for me, so just kind of kept it around. It seems like a nice ornament. You're not the first to ask me about it either.
No, I assume not. Yeah, I assume I'm not the first or the last. Are you guys married? I see. It looks like Corey's married. Are you married, Barry?
Yeah.
So your wife lets you have that chandelier, right? Okay. I'm just trying to put things into perspective a little bit. It's all good. So where exactly is Status as a project right now? Because ultimately, I'm of the belief that, where we are, as a market, with Bitcoin kind of, it's, still rising in dominance. And then we have the altcoin market that just keeps getting kicked in the balls every single day, it feels like. And everybody's waiting for this big altcoin rally. And one of the things that I tell everybody is, look, it's going to be all about use case and community. The projects that when the next altcoin rally starts, which I believe is going to be around a $20,000 Bitcoin once people have recovered from what happened, or this cycle, we're going to start seeing a lot of these altcoin projects rise. And a lot of the rise is going to be dependent on use case, functionality, and the community that's been able to be established or maintained over this bear market. How does Status play into that? Like, if I were wanting to use a project that, okay, I'm new to crypto, I don't know anything about it. I see Status because I'm just browsing around YouTube and I'm watching this interview. Why do I give a shit? Like, what is it about Status that's going to pull me in, keep me there, and add something to my life?
Do you use messaging applications on your phone?
Yes.
You have, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, all the different messaging applications.
Yes.
It's basically what we are. We're just built in a much more secure way that allows you to transfer value between your friends and access whatever decentralized application that pops up that people actually want to use.
Let me also throw it back at you. How do you feel when you use Facebook and all these other, Snapchat, whatever? How do you feel that as you're using it, your data belongs to them, you're farming in their mind, right? And they basically own all that data, all those conversations that you have is basically being fed into their machine, so to speak. And over time, you lose control of it. I mean, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, I don't really think about it too much, to be honest. I feel like if I were up to no good, I'd be scared to death. But I don't. I think that privacy overall, while important to try and maintain, I think at some point in the future is going to become a luxury anyway. And I say that like I'm flippant about it. It's not necessarily that I'm flippant about it. I just think that there are, over time, as technology continues to grow and change, I think that for our lives to continue to get easier and easier and easier, and for us to be able to live prosperously while lazily, I think we're going to have to give up a lot of this stuff that we care a lot about. And I don't necessarily think it's a good thing, but I also think that we're slowly being desensitized to it over time to the point where we care less and less. And we say, you know what, I would rather you know that I'm, having this conversation with, whoever the hell it is, and be able to accomplish X, Y, and Z than not be able to accomplish those things and have everything private.
I think that's wrong. Like, to be honest, I don't agree with that. It's because a good portion of what you just said, that desensitization happens because of the kind of computer infrastructure that built the internet right now. Like, we've basically been taught to be okay with giving up privacy and security in exchange for convenience.
Yeah, I thought that is what I just said.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be that way, right?
Oh, it doesn't have to be. I just think that's the way it is.
It certainly is, but that's kind of the big movement of like what blockchain is supposed to be is trying to get away from that kind of exchange where you can have both at the same time.
And I agree with you.
Status is trying that.
So tell me, how does status change anything for someone like me with that perception? What does that do for me?
Barry, you're muted, I think.
If you haven't figured it out, I'm trying to set you guys up for a home run here.
Well, yeah, it's providing people all of the things that you already do, but in a secure way, where you don't have to give up that type of stuff unless you want to. You have some kind of like, you can selectively choose to be who you want to be, as opposed to like pigeonholing yourself into the technology that's currently available. Right now, if you want to use any messenger application, you have to give them your phone number, personal information, so on and so forth. If you want to do any type of value transaction, like send money to somebody, you got to give them a lot more than that. That doesn't have to be that way. And so status is trying to provide an avenue where you can kind of selectively choose how much of that you'd like to give up, if you have to give it up at all. In order to use status, you just open up the application, you get your private key, and that's your identity. You don't have to link anything about your personal life unless you want to. I think as time goes on and we start seeing more and more of this kind of
you say you link your private key?
No, you get one.
Oh, okay.
We give you one.
I was
right?
like, wait a minute.
No, we give you one. You can manage all that, and it should be really easy for the user too. So that shouldn't be something they have to worry about. But like,
so I use Telegram, right? Sorry. So I use Telegram, and there are probably 15 or 20 other people out there that are pretending to be me to try and scam companies and scam people.
Yeah.
If definitely. I were to use the status app for my communication, or like, can I have groups like I have on Telegram? Can I have a community in status? And can I be the only one? Can I be the only person that's like me? Am I verified in any way?
Currently, yes. We have different ways in which you can verify yourself. We do ENS usernames, so you can register. It's like basically only one person can have. But scamming and phishing is definitely a problem that's rampant within this space.
It is. But I think usernames is a good use case that we have that shows one of the differences, right? Where you could have a username on a centralized network like Telegram, but or Facebook or whatever the case may be. And it really, while you have it, the network could, if they wanted to, take it away from you. They could censor you, they could kick you off, they could do whatever. On status, it's just the usernames are just a protocol. And when you register a username, you own it, and nobody can censor you, nobody can take it away from you, and it's yours. And I think that's a big fundamental difference.
No one can copy it either, being someone pretending to be you.
Let's say somebody out there, let's say one of these guys that's always trying to impersonate me online is watching this video right now, and they're on their way to status to go and set up Crypto Crow usernames and everything else. And then I go to status and I say, well, some scammer, some imposter already grabbed this username. What can be done about it? Like, I'm the real one, but this guy is pretending to be me. Can anything be done?
No. That's one of those situations that's once you claim it, it's yours. It's cryptographically yours in a lot of ways. But what you would do in order to be you is you would broadcast what you've done, what you've claimed, or who you've become, and that then can't be stolen. Right? Sure. It's just like, it's one of those situations with anything with the scarcity. If someone buys it before you, there's nothing much you can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, there are some ways around that, but like I tell everybody all the time, this is my Telegram handle. It's the only one, and then I get people they create them with different misspellings, or how that stuff is handled.
Absolutely.
And so even though I tell people until I'm blue in the face, this is the real me. I still get emails all the time. Oh, I sent money to this guy. He promised a review. I'm gonna lose my job, and I'm thinking you probably deserve it because you didn't look. You weren't paying attention. But I like the idea of having like these little verified labels. Like this is who this person claims to be. If they aren't verified, if they don't have this little verified icon, then it's probably, it could be a fake. It could be an imposter. Do you guys have anything like that in play?
So identity is a real big question, especially in the crypto community, where you say, what is even the concept of identity? Where, you don't necessarily want to be able to just attribute it to maybe someone's government ID. But there are thoughts around sort of identity and reputation. And it's things like, how much has a person participated in a network over time? How long have they been around? All these things can start to come together to build an identity and a reputation for a person. This is one of those problems. If you go to Ethereum, if you go to their GitHub, they have a page called Hard Problems. And yeah, identity is one of those hard problems that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet, but there's definitely some ideas around how we can do it. And
well, here's a reason why, right? We're a project that doesn't really have an owner. We try to do things in as decentralized a context as possible, which means that we don't control anything. We put it out for other people to control. So for instance, if someone wants to have a verified sticker, who's the person that hands that out? And who's the person that takes that away? We don't want that control as a company. We want the community to be able to come around figuring out who that is and how to do it. We just try to provide software that allows them to do that, or S&T stakeholders for that matter.
The other side of it is, if you want to be, some people want to go as far as calling themselves self-sovereign, but if you want to have just more control of your own assets, that also means you need to assume more responsibility. So you need to educate yourself. You can't, if you want to be ignorant, then you can just rely on a higher centralized power. But if you want to be, have more of your own liberty, you also have to be more responsible for yourself. That's I think the fundamental trade-off. So people just also need to accept that they need to, be more educated, and if they want that extra freedom that comes with some of these protocols, or they need to themselves assume more responsibility.
Okay.
Right. Crypto transactions are irreversible, right? So if you're sending one out, you want to. It's the burden's on you. You can't just call your bank afterwards if you sent it to the wrong person and say, I made a mistake.
Right. Yeah, well, that's why verification of who the individual claims to be, to me, is important. I like the Twitter verify. I like even though I don't have one, I don't know what you even need to do.
They stopped doing it, didn't they?
I know that I think they stopped being able to, from what I understand, in order to become a Twitter verified person now, you have to prove that there are others out there pretending to be you. So if you don't have access to that, or if that's not running rampant for any reason, which I don't think I have a lot of impersonators on Twitter. They're all on Telegram. They're all trying to spoof emails and things like that. So yeah, I don't have a Twitter verified either. But I know that they used to do it so you could just register for it, prove who you were somehow, but yeah, they did cancel that. Now I think it's more to address like current issues with your identity in Twitter. So they're still issuing them, but rare.
Status allows you, like, don't get me wrong, it's once you have it, it's there and it's verifiable. Like if you go to status and search Petty, Petty, you find me and only me, and you'll only ever find me. Eventually, what we could do is make whatever client you're using that like uses the status network to communicate has verified badges based on these ENS usernames. And version 1 will come out in the app stores relatively soon. It's going through audits now, or it will go through audits soon. And part of that is going to have basically, if you've registered for one of these names, it shows it by the name. to show like, oh, this person has an ENS username, and that's immutable. You can't change that. So if you search for something, or you're just typing in a public channel or something, you see who they are.
Yeah, we also, in the actual username protocol that's part of status, it incorporates something called slashing, which is there's some rules embedded, which if someone tries to register a username that looks like yours using some kind of illegal characters that don't necessarily come up when you're looking at that username, in order to register a username, you have to lock up some S&T. So, so now if someone registered an illegal username, and we determine that it's illegal, that it by the slashing rules, they can effectively get slashed, and they lose that username, and they've lost the deposit that they put in there. So that's also a mechanism to fight such.
I like that. That's cool. Only problem is I actually need to I need to check that out. I need to actually can I download it now? See, I was reading about it. I was going to download it, but it said there are still some vulnerabilities. I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with vulnerabilities.
No, it's fine. Do you want to do it? You want it on your phone or on your desktop?
On my so this is a chat client I can use on my desktop as well.
Yeah, the desktop client right now is an alpha, so it's going to be going a lot more love after we release the mobile client in the app stores. So version 1 is about to get its release candidate cut for audits here in the next couple of weeks, which means that's basically going to be what it looks like when it gets released. You can download that now on Android or you have to use test flight because iOS is kind of an asshole. So
okay.
Once you get that, then you can use it. I use it. We use it every day. That's how we communicate.
I have test flight because I have it. So can I? How difficult is the process for me if I want to go over, like, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go and see if I can get any one of my known handles,
Go to status.im and it'll walk you through the process.
Oh, I can just do it on the website? Yeah,
or just yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go there so that I don't forget. Because
here's the thing, like you have to. So in order to get that username, you're gonna have to stake S&T. So you need to get some S&T first, right?
So how many do I need?
Right now it's only 10, which is maybe 20 cents.
Oh gosh, you're breaking me. I don't think I can swing that.
Tell me about it. So like that's actually we wrote an article about kind of the impact of what these usernames have across the entire ecosystem. That's kind of what this whole token economics thing is. And that's the idea of like, one, how do you come up with a reasonable value for this type of thing? Like how much is the username worth to a user?
Right.
And then how does that value change over time? Because right now it's only staking. If you would like to release that, you can release your name and get that money back if you want. So say you staked Sin S&T, it's worth, pennies right now. And that turns into something more later on down the line. And you're like, I don't really use that username anymore. I want it back. You can get that money back always. And then we wrote an article about like kind of how does.
So you're not even paying a fee to acquire this. It's just you're
locking
staking
it up. In the process of locking it up, you're taking it out of circulation, which means that that I guess the remaining circulation is smaller, which means getting it is harder to do. And so say we get wildly popular, a bunch of people do this, you're locking up a pretty good percentage of money in this contract that basically can't be used anymore as long as people are using these usernames.
So you have a desktop client, you have a Windows app.
You can't do much with that right now. You can only chat with that. So you can get a username and you can chat. You can't use any of the wallet features and things like that. That's coming after the mobile app.
Yeah, the mobile app comes with a fully loaded dApp browser, so you could use dApps that are on Ethereum. You could do interesting things like actually send money in a chat conversation, right? So you could send someone a little bit of Ether S&T right in a conversation.
Okay.
Or request it.
It's like WeChat. I mean, you know how big WeChat is in China.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing is that I personally want to have a community, a chat community that's not being constantly bombarded by people pretending to be me. I literally just had another impersonator trying to join my own Telegram community like before this video. And I'm like, ban him. And then, Natasha, who's in chat, she's one of my admins, and she's She's like, already done, it's just, they're constant. I've even talked to some of these guys. Like the one guy, he sent me a picture of himself. He's like from Iran. And you talk about how poor and broke he is and how like the only way he can survive for his family is to pretend to be me on the internet. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, like, get a job. I don't know what it's like over there, but I'm sure they have some other honest way of making a living. So,
what you just said is something that I think that's the reason why I work for Status, is because our goal eventually is to make those things, like enabling people to create micro communities around, especially for content creators. Mm-hmm. And then it's like right now you can do that, but you can't really have value flow within those things, right? Mm-hmm. So my goal is for us to eventually have something like basically decentralized communication platform, or whether it be a Slack alternative or a WeChat or whatever, where people like you can basically create their micro community, have them chat, have them kind of tell you what's going on. You have a community of people to give you feedback on what you're doing and watch your stuff, but also you to interact with them in a much better way. And then when you include value, you get to kind of incentivize people to do things. They can pay you directly, so on and so forth. But you don't want to do that in a way that can be censored in any way.
Yeah. So one of the use cases that Status is working on is called Tribute to Talk, which it's an anti-spam mechanism. So what it does is it allows stakeholders to set a minimum amount of S&T that needs to be staked for somebody outside of your network to contact you. And if someone contacts you and you determine that they're a spammer, they lose their stake. So it really, these things, they really start to make the cost of being a spammer or a scammer expensive. Because right now, the economics of being a spammer are pretty good. It doesn't cost you anything to send spam, right?
Especially on like Twitter and Telegram, that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's good business to pretend to be me. And I'm not joking. Like, these guys make tons of money.
Isn't it? It's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy.
Now, imagine
what's crazier is that they're getting sent this Bitcoin and Ethereum all the time without somebody even looking into whether or not they're legit.
Well, you know why? It's because the cost to do it is incredibly small. It's like the rate of return versus the cost of doing it on a massive scale is really, really, really low. So you can make bots that just spam the shit out of things. And then if you get a small percentage of people who are ignorant enough to actually return those things, then you've made tons of money on your time investment.
Right.
So imagine this. So right now, the actual monetary cost to send all those messages is essentially nothing. I mean, there's maybe the time investment, but there's no real, they don't have to put up any money. Imagine if they actually had to put up like $1 equivalent of S&T to send somebody who doesn't have them in their contacts a message, right? Now you do that over like 100,000 people. That's literally costing the spammer $100,000 they have to put up just to reach out to those people. And then they could potentially lose all that if those people start marking them as actual spammers.
Or your community just basically no one can talk in it unless they've staked money. And then a moderator could eventually, because once you could.
The only thing about that though is that could potentially be abused by trolls. Like, I've had it happen to me. I've been banned, 7-day ban on Telegram because I go in and I'm posting a video in a community about the project, or it's an interview, and they have these bots that if you post a link, you're automatically branded as a spammer and then kicked out. You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't know what the hell's going on. But some people can just easily be like, oh, he's a spammer, delete him, and then you're locked out.
Based on how we're trying to build things, that's going to be community specific. There's no rules in the platform that are going to allow that to happen, right? It's going to be whatever community you create, the people who manage that community make the rules for the community. Whereas right now, the rules exist on a lower level. They exist at the people who own the network, or like say Telegram or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, Telegram would honestly be a hell of a lot better if you had a way to verify who you were.
I personally don't like Telegram. It's just I don't like its UI. I can't get into it. I use it because people use it, but
I've used a lot of different stuff. I tried using Slack. But that's why I'm interested in Status too, because I'm like, if you guys can get this shit done that I need, I'll be all over it. It's just nobody offers everything that is needed at one location yet. Everybody's kind of got, just one element but nobody has this all-encompassing answer to what's going on. And so, you know, with that's one good thing in terms of status is you're in a position where, I mean, you can make all this shit happen, and it'll be extremely meaningful when it does.
Well, I personally want it to happen because, like, I have a podcast community, and it's like, I don't know, 600, 700 people in a Slack that talk with us regularly. They spend time talking to each other. It's very vibrant. It's fun. And I would love it if I could transfer this to something like Status eventually, and then enable value flow where it's just a much more vibrant, rich community. I can interact with the people who are interested in the content I'm creating.
Right.
That's what you want. Any content creator would want that, but you don't want either the platform that you build that on to have the say in how you do it, or people from other communities having a say in how you do it. And so, like, how do you build that in such a way where everyone has a say in how they would like to do it, while also enabling all this other cool stuff? It's really hard.
Yeah, I would love to have a kind of a decentralized platform that, you know, like if I'm using if I adopt something that's like a Telegram, but it's on the blockchain, it utilizes all these things, and I say, you know what, I'd really like to have this feature added, and, you know, I can just hire a developer to add a DApp or something that helps with whatever functionality I want. That's a dream come true for me. You know,
that's definitely how we're trying to even, like, so for instance, our, like, not only is our, like, application trying to be decentralized, but the organization itself is too. So because we don't want to basically have full control over what gets built and how it's built and so on and so forth, we're trying to build the most generalized foundation so that anybody can build anything on top of it. So basically a set of protocols that anybody can build on top of. And that, and then the organization is going to break apart at some point where we just have kind of the minimal amount of people required to keep things running, and then set up frameworks where people can do exactly what you just said. I want this feature. I'm going to pay money to it, and then delegate how it gets done to the people who build it. And that's probably kind of like a smart contracting framework to allow you to say, I want this done. Who can apply to do it? And then I'll delegate the funds as they do it to try to get it done. And that's just built on top of the Status network. And then everyone can benefit from it.
Yeah, all the code is open source. I mean, basically everything we do is open source. Even the discussions we have amongst each other, our so-called message board is open to the world to see how we have discussions amongst ourselves. And yeah, you could essentially use something maybe like Gitcoin, create a bounty that says, I want to have this built on top of the Status network, and find some developers to build it for you.
So I could effectively take over Status and make it my own.
Yeah, you got to buy a shitload of Status though. It's
cheap as shit, man. You never know. So, okay. So, I mean, look, this is cool stuff. I dig this, and I ultimately I like kind of the direction this thing's going. And there's still, I had the blog. I was looking at something, and I'm like, oh, this is a lot of really good stuff. It's just, man, me finding the time to be able to read everything that I want to is like not easy right now.
Space has gotten too big to keep up with everything at this point.
It really has. It's just,
back when I started, it was like I could read like the Bitcoin Reddit, I could watch the news, things like that, and I can understand everything that's going on. Now it's impossible.
Crow, build something on Status and Cardano and Elrond. I don't even know what Elrond is.
What is Elrond?
Never heard of it. I'm guessing it might be a typo. Everybody knows Cardano is like my favorite project, of all time, and I'm just
the network is not live yet, right?
Well, no, I mean, their proof of stake is going to be launching soon, and then their smart contracts are going to be launching soon.
The Ouroboros Praxis.
Yeah. Well, it's Shelley. Ouroboros. That's the no, I'm thinking of Daedalus. Ouroboros, I think, is already launched. I think but the Shelley proof of stake protocol for it hasn't yet, and that's coming here pretty soon. I just had Charles on a few weeks back, and we talked a lot about I mean, towards the end of this year, man, Cardano is gonna explode. I really do think. And you know, the thing, I'm curious what you guys think. You know, some of what Charles and I actually talked about in terms of like some of the weaknesses in Ethereum that Cardano is addressing. And not even like 2 weeks after that, you know, Ethereum's basically saying, yeah, we're looking at basically storing data on Bitcoin Cash's blockchain. Like, how, are we still in such infancy? Like, you
Yes.
know, everything is so new, and I
Yes.
get that, but to have something with that kind of a market cap, with that kind of, you know, developer following, so forth and so on, to so easily say, oh, we think we're just gonna, you know, migrate everything over to this.
Well,
I don't think, first of all, that research post was not like we're just going to migrate over. It was basically almost like a one of these like sidechain or plasma type constructions where someone could potentially use the Bitcoin chain if they wanted to design a dApp that way. I don't think it's necessarily that post was, first of all, it's a research idea. It's not even like,
I read it like him saying, look, Ethereum's way too expensive to do what blockchain or Bitcoin Cash could potentially do for us in the meantime until we launch Ethereum 2.0. That's how I read it. But I'm not a super tech developer guy.
Right, potentially. But there's a lot of different architectures you can use building a dApp on top of Ethereum. You don't have to just have, let's say, a client and a smart contract on Ethereum. If you need to have, let's say, a higher throughput application, you can start to have side chains that leverage that, where, you know, you might be running that infrastructure as well. You might be using some other network like Cosmos or Polkadot to help facilitate that. You know, and this is just one more possible construction to investigate. But
could a situation like that be remedied? Let's say, okay, you know, we like the idea of this, and you know, it would save a lot of you know, bandwidth and money and so forth if we were to store a lot of the stuff on Bitcoin Cash. Could and this is me not being a developer and not knowing and genuinely curious, could you use something like Aeon to facilitate that data transfer so that you're effectively maintaining your own blockchain, but you're utilizing some of the benefits of others and kind of make that a more seamless thing?
well, that is kind of like the vision of things like Cosmos and Polkadot, right? To get these different chains talking to each other and interacting with each other.
Depends on what you want to put there and who needs it or who relies upon it and how much what availability. It's what's weird about building these systems. You have to really think about where you're putting stuff, how you need access to it, how much, the limitations of what that data is and who needs it.
Right.
And it's like a blockchain. Is it good for some things? And so you only put what's good for it in the blockchain and then figure out something else for all that other stuff. And so potentially, yes, you could do that with Aeon if it's production ready or whatever else ends up becoming the next big thing. You can, in my opinion, that's the way a lot of this stuff is going to look. And for instance, like the status network, our token is an ERC20 token, but like the communications network is our own network, and things like that. And I think that's how most of this stuff will end up being built, is you have these blockchain-like networks doing things that are specific to whatever that use case is, and then you're routing into a much larger value network like Ethereum or Bitcoin Cash or whatever the hell else you think is appropriate to do like critical things, trustless things or value transfers, right? And so you kind of have this like marriage or intermingling of blockchains that do whatever the hell your use case is. So
what do you guys think? You know, to get a little bit into, you know, overall, what I know some people are waiting to hear about cryptoeconomics. You know, what do you guys think is happening right now? I mean, in terms of where Bitcoin is, these, you know, we went sideways with Bitcoin for quite a while, and you know, in this bear market, there wasn't a lot of volatility, there wasn't a lot happening. Now it seems like at least the volatility of Bitcoin is kicking up quite a bit, but the altcoins are still kind of sleeping, and almost being kicked while they're down, as it were. What do you see? What do you think is actually going on right now, and how do you see that changing over the rest of this year? Like, what? I'm sure you guys both have different perspectives on things. I'm curious as to what those are from a development perspective and a, you know, whatever.
There, you start. I have a lot of opinions here.
Well, one thing we could say is so the token swarm at status, we see Bitcoin, at least for now, is being sort of like the benchmark for crypto, right? It's like when people first are starting to get into crypto, they think of Bitcoin like, if you're looking to get into stocks, you think of the S&P 500, right? It's been around the longest, it's the most liquid, and it's kind of like it's probably the largest network in terms of the security of its network, right? So it has those three things going for it. And it seems like, at least from the mainstream perspective, the one use case that is kind of really catching on, and I guess the Bitcoin has established itself at being good at, is finding using decentralization to not change itself. Like, it's resistant to that attack of change, and it uses decentralization to effectively make itself like a digital version of gold, right? And when you have that, that sort of makes it more valuable. I think a digital version of gold actually is more valuable than, say, the physical version of gold in some cases, right? It's easier to move around funds. Try crossing a border with $1 billion in gold. It's going to be pretty hard to do, but you could do that with $1 billion of Bitcoin, right? So it seems like, because that it sort of evolved to that point where, like I said, when I first got into Bitcoin, I was really excited about all these other applications that it could support, like smart contracts. That was part of the Bitcoin vision. I'm pretty sure it's not anymore. Now it's sort of relegated itself to this network that is going to maintain itself as what it is. And like what Bitcoin is today, you could expect it to be 10 years from now. Like it's a network that is going to be very hard to change. And there's value in that, just like there's value in gold. But I don't think that's the only use case for decentralization. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of these other use cases emerge. And I don't think they're even competitors against each other. It's like saying oil is a competitor to gold. I mean, it's not. They have different uses, right? I mean, for now, it is the benchmark, which sort of, I think, the external world, people that are not heavily into crypto, look at. And even in crypto, it is sort of like that source of liquidity. It's like the monetary base almost of the whole ecosystem. That's where a lot of the value lies that starts to flow into these other projects, right? Ethereum was crowdfunded from basically using Bitcoin, right? And so are some of these other projects. So I kind of said a lot about it.
Yeah, and I agree. Actually, I agree with I agree with a lot of what you said. So I'm Corey. What's your perspective on this?
So Bitcoin doesn't change much. We all know that, but it's the Kleenex. It's the Band-Aid or ketchup of cryptocurrencies. It's most of the time, meaning it has the branding. It's most of the time when people are like, "What do you do?" I was like, "Well, shit. How do I explain this?" I was like, "Heard of blockchain?" They're like, "No, I haven't heard of that."
I do
was like,
Bitcoin,
"Have you heard of
Bitcoin
stuff."
That's
I do Bitcoin stuff. It's like, "Oh, I've heard of that. You must be rich." And so it has that branding and has that name. And like Barry said, it also has that security and liquidity because more often than not, it has those things. And it's usually the first thing people get introduced to. And it's also what most people keep in terms of reserve because everything else is more volatile. So like they may be traders and they'll keep a lot of it inside of Bitcoin because it's less volatile and they'll go move in and out that way. For the longest time, that's the only way you could actually get to any of these altcoins. And so when we first started this show, you mentioned that you see another altcoin boom coming at some point, right?
Absolutely.
I don't know if that's going to happen, at least in the way it did last time, because
no, it's going to be different than the way it happened last time for sure.
Yeah, it's more like a network centric altcoin versus this ERC20 token boom of projects getting funded through the ICO.
Well, see, rampant speculation drove up the altcoin market in 2017 and 2018.
Well, it drove up the prices in everything. That's the only reason we've ever had rampant speculation, rampant price changes because of rampant speculation. Right. Nothing has changed in terms of actual like utility and people using it.
I don't think we're going to have, so for me personally, I thought, I looked at it as there was a lot of new money going into Bitcoin and Ethereum because they wanted to get into these ICO projects that were making everybody so much money. Yeah. And, at that point, everything was so new. There were so many new people coming into the space because of the money that was being made, which was drawing people into the technology. So it was like, oh, money's being made over here. oh, now I understand why. I'm going to get in that much more. And so the more you learned about the technology that was driving up all of these profits for people, all these ROIs for people, the deeper you got into the space, and it pulls you in like a fucking black hole, right? Yeah. And so now you've got this whole new community of people that have gotten into the cryptocurrency space because of the profit potential, but stayed because of the technology. The people that stayed because of the technology are much fewer and farther between than the people who got in sheerly on speculation alone. However, those people still exist, and they're out there waiting in the world, waiting to come back into the space. The ICOs drove this interest. These ICOs drove all these people into the market using Bitcoin and Ethereum as their gateway. And they either did well or they didn't. They either did well and sold, or they sold at a loss. Regardless, that to me doesn't matter. In my opinion, the next altcoin market rally isn't going to be based off of ICOs or even STOs, obviously, because people are now going to focus on trading what they can get access to, because the regulations have stopped the ICOs. No longer can somebody just throw, $100 or $1,000 in cash into Bitcoin, throw it at an Ethereum address and make a 10x return, because if you're not an accredited investor, you're not getting shit in the United States anyway. So that's going to result in, basically the top 10, or not even the top 10, but the top decentralized projects that aren't going to be classified as securities by the SEC is where the money is going to go from the typical retail market. And so when I look at these projects, I think, okay, are they decentralized? If they're not decentralized, are they going to be classified as a security or not? If they're not, and they're tradable within the United States on exchanges that are offering them, the speculation is going to be there. And that is what is going to drive the next rally. It's going to be, you know what? I can buy into this coin, and, as the market is moving, I can get a 20, 30x return just buying at this point on the exchange. And as that starts to happen with people pumping their, buying, and I know I'm going on my own little tangent now, but it's people that bought into Bitcoin and have held it. Once they're at profit in Bitcoin and they think, okay, I can either profit 2x holding my Bitcoin from here on, or I can then profit 10 or 20x buying X project, that money's going to go into the altcoin projects. And I think exchange volume is going to go through the roof, and it's not going to be just about Bitcoin. I don't think it's going to be as much about Ethereum this time as it's going to be about these altcoin projects. And I think a lot of these altcoin projects are likely, in my opinion, going to do much better, much quicker than Ethereum will in the grand scheme of things. That's how I think.
Yeah. Well, there's also something else to consider that I think might be interesting, is how people may start to make money on these networks aside from just speculation, where I think there's becoming more and more opportunities to make money, and like good money too in some cases, by just being a network participant. I think there was like a study done where someone looked at Augur, and they found there was one address. They don't know who the actual person is, but they found one address that was settling these. I don't know how familiar you are with Augur, but it's basically a decentralized prediction market. And it's basically where people take bets on events like who will be the next president, who's going to win this race, this or that. And of course, since it's decentralized, you need network participants to actually settle the contract when that date comes, to say who determine what the event that actually occurred is, and so that the people who bet in favor of it get paid out, and the people who didn't, their funds get transferred to those who did. There was one address that basically in the course of 6 months earned the equivalent of over $100,000 settling these Augur contracts at maturity. It's just a person going and doing these transactions. They were not speculating on price. They were literally just participating in the network. There's, I believe, hundreds of thousands of dollars being made right now in Maker, another protocol built on top of Ethereum, where people are liquidating if you want, we can get into the weeds on this, and I don't know how familiar you are, but liquidating CDPs, which are basically debt positions that people have taken on. Again, that's not price speculation on their behalf. That's just them being a participant in the network. And even on Status, you can earn some money going around slashing illegal usernames. And there's going to be more opportunities as we build out these other use cases on Status. But I think that there's going to be a big explosion in people being able to possibly earn their entire living just being a participant in these networks.
And that'll be a great day.
Yeah.
And I look, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do. You can sit around watching ads on the Brave browser, and during an altcoin rally, hell, there are a lot of people that I would suspect are going to be sitting around watching ads on and collecting their BAT tokens, because they're going to be collecting these things, watching ads all day, and they're just going to watch the value of those tokens rise. So, but BAT basic attention is a great example of one project that I think is going to do well in the next bull market. Well, or bull run, I guess you could say, and look, I think even shit coins, absolute useless shit coins, are going to see strong increases in their value, regardless of use case. BitConnect is likely, don't buy. I'm not telling people to buy it, but some of the shittiest of the shit projects are probably going to see increases in price action and price value, just because people are crazy and they're going to do it.
Well,
whatever you have, like ignorance and a massive amount of FOMO combined, people can take advantage of that, and people will take advantage of that in these types of things. But here's
pump and dumps are going to be rampant, and they're going to take advantage of the people using every potential project out there with a low price, easy liquidity, the ability to get in and out. If it's
here's the thing that I think is missing from a lot of this, and this is one of the things that our swarm at Status, the token economics swarm, is trying to work on, is like evaluating these things appropriately, right? Because right now, or at least historically, the majority of the time people try and make evaluations on whether or not something is a good investment. They use traditional models in finance to do that. And that's not necessarily a good thing. It may give you a viewpoint or a lens to make some decision, but it doesn't get the whole picture.
Right.
So especially with utility tokens, when these tokens aren't just money, they actually do something. Trying to figure out what that utility's value is in comparison to the entire network, or like comparison to like a broader ecosystem, is really hard to do. And so because we have certain use cases within Status, we're trying to build models around like, okay, ENS usernames, what impact could that possibly have on all of S&T? If from that impact, can we then maybe derive what the value of S&T should be based on a certain amount of use, and so on and so forth? Or like even like someone wants to build a feature on Status. All right, well, why would they build that feature? What impact would it have compared to the rest of the thing? Is the cost to build the thing worth it in comparison to the money it could make if people use it? Like, how do you evaluate that? Like, that's a good portion of like what basically does not exist in this entire ecosystem. When you don't have things like that, people can't make good decisions, and they buy a bunch of shit coins and lose all their money.
Right. And I think I get exactly what you're saying, and I think that ultimately, people didn't invest in the ICO boom because of use case. People bought in what they thought other people were buying into. That's it.
Where they use terrible like market metrics to try and figure out when a graph is going to change and make decisions based on that.
Yeah,
there's that saying that nothing motivates a person more than watching their neighbor get rich. Right.
Very, very true. It's so funny because I actually wrote almost exactly that for something I'm working on for my Chainwise convention. And you'll see it because I'm actually storyboarding out a promo video that I'm going to put everywhere. But yeah, it's so true. It's like, it's like I used to do a lot of ICO reviews and things like that. And I had a pretty decent metric, but there were some projects that, by the numbers, they look great, but I would still call them out as a shit show because the numbers are only part of it. The perceived value of the token based off of the potential use case against their market cap and this and that. And, but then there were some that, maybe by the numbers, they didn't look that great, but some of them ended up doing really well. And I thought they would probably do pretty well. It's just, you never really know. And that's the thing, because the space is so new and we're venturing out into this wild world of the unknown. There's really no telling, or there has been no true telling as to what projects are going to do fantastic and which are going to fall short and disappear. And we
Well,
still
let me ask
haven't
you this
resolved
question.
that question yet.
Let me ask you this question in terms of like status. Do you think messaging is going to go away?
Oh, absolutely. Your use case sucks.
Yeah, it's just no one messages anybody. No one.
No, that's I think status has a lot of potential, and I think that the more you're able to grow that use case in messaging, into, like you said, communities and things like that. If you can empower, even if you started your market by empowering content creators, I wonder how that will help you.
I have this like kind of picture in my head that I've been viewing ever since we started the podcast and I joined Status. It was like I have this picture of someone being a drone in some workplace, right? And they go to work, they do their thing, and in their off time, they have this like weird esoteric, like off hobby that they love. They would love to spend their time doing, and they have some subreddit community that they participate in. They send pictures of weird mangas,
War Machine models.
Right. And they get a bunch of feedback on it. Now imagine if that person could eventually do that type of behavior that they love and then get feedback and value from like monetary value from the community that they participate in. And then they could transition themselves from the drone workplace that they have every day that sucks to just producing content for some community and making a living off of that. If everyone could do that, I'd call that a revolution.
I agree.
That's like creating micro communities, and then people being able to sustain off those micro communities is a drastic shift in how people live their lives. And I think they'd just be a lot happier. But you got to have technology that enables them to do that, where they're not thinking about how the technology works. They're just doing the thing.
Exactly. And that is the part that's still, in my opinion, a part of the problem today.
Yeah,
in terms of mass adoption.
Really hard.
It's still, it's still a chore. Once getting into crypto is no longer a chore, but something you can do easily. If you can get into crypto as easily as downloading something, I think that's the thing. It's everything. Like even if I want to go get in, I have to go log in to an exchange. If I don't have an account, I have to set up an account on an exchange, get Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever base pair I'm going to use to then buy. I'm going to go through a fiat gateway. Then I have to go buy the crypto token. Then I have to send that crypto token to whatever address that I'm given by whatever application I'm using. It's a fucking chore.
Yeah.
Like, who has time to do all that shit? Make it easy. Once we've gotten to the point where the technology has grown enough that it's a mindless effort on part of anybody, at that point, that's when we're going to see true mass adoption. And until then, it's going to be a rat race to see who can create enough cool shit to get the public to take enough notice and to care enough to jump through all these hoops to take advantage. And that's fine, but that's where innovation comes. And that's, I think, the true innovators are going to be the ones that make this simple. The blockchain companies that enable the public to get involved, benefit from the use case of a cryptocurrency without them even knowing they're doing it. Those are going to be the true winners in the space moving forward. And, we'll see. Rest in peace, Tyler Jenks of Hyperweight. I'm not sure if people are saying this because he actually passed or because his theories were all bullshit. Like, I don't, I've been seeing this. Tyler Jenks is he's basically he's on Tone Vase channel a lot, and seemed like a nice guy. Did he really pass?
Chat box, go to work. Tell us if that's true.
He passed. Everybo's saying he did.
Oh, wow.
Son of a gun! Oh my god, that's terrible.
That's never fun.
Yeah, I saw people posting that early on. As soon as I started, wow, I'm mind blown. The one thing that I do not handle well is mortality. Like, I don't handle that at all. I don't do funerals. The last funeral I went to, I won't go. And I tell everybody, if I die tomorrow, you don't have to go to mine either. I don't blame you. Like, I'd rather, the last funeral I went to was my grandmother. I kissed her on her forehead, and I'll never forget that feeling like it was this morning. And that was 20 something years ago. And
they're not supposed to be fun, man. That's not like one of those things where like,
dude, I would not, I wouldn't, I can't explain it to you, but I become a basket case for weeks. I can't handle it. Like, my uncle passed a few years ago, and I can't tell you how I'm not one of those people where I'm like, oh, goodbye, I loved you. You cry for an hour and you move on. I don't handle it. Like, I shut down for weeks, and then I can't help but to think like I'm next, and it just makes me paranoid and crazy, and call me selfish, but I'm like, on top of that, I'd rather remember everybody the way I last saw them. And that's just me. I prefer just everybody lives on in my mind rather than, oh, I have closure. I just witnessed somebody and they're basically a cold body now and goodbye. I don't like that.
I know you don't like talking about mortality, but here's actually a big question.
If you tell me status is going to make me immortal, I'm all over it.
I don't know about that, but here's actually a big unsolved problem for people that hold crypto assets. Actually, what happens to them when you die? What kind of a plan do you have? Because it's not like your bank account. When you die, your estate could find it and get access to the funds. Like it's a whole different ball of wax with crypto assets. And like if your viewers, the ones if they ask themselves, if I was to die tomorrow, would my family be able to even get access to my crypto assets?
Well, I have a very trusted friend that knows he would fly here, and he knows what to look for and what to do. He'll have the keys to go and get what he needs, and my wife knows. So,
smart man.
Yeah, I mean, I actually utilize multiple safety deposit boxes for a lot of shit. And I have 6 different computers, and they're all, I'm crazy stupid about my crypto and my security and all this stuff. And it's a process. I've got dummy systems. I've got dummy phones. Like, if somebody were like, I damn near say booby trapped in some cases. And I'm not even joking. Like, when we moved into our new house, let's just say we built our new house for multiple purposes. And,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't fuck around, man. Like, ever since I got hacked, that made me the most paranoid son of a bitch ever. Luckily, the hacker, he had access to my computer through the night as I was sleeping. I'm sure he was Russian, because the time zone and everything, and I went and I was trying to do some IP tracking and this and that. All he got were some Dropple tokens. He had access to everything, and he couldn't get into anything.
Well, that's because you thought about it, right? I mean, that's a UX problem altogether. Is like what Barry said a lot earlier on in the show. As you decentralize things, you push a lot of the risk and responsibility to the end user.
Oh, and that was before I even had my security as a big thing. Like that,
you're lucky because
everything's 20 times what it was when I was actually hacked. That's what I'm saying. That made me so crazy. Like, if you can survive trying to burglarize my house, then you get a medal. Like, I'm just crazy.
Most people, it's hard for people, right? Like, most people would rather just someone take care of that stuff for them. That's why I think right now you're seeing a lot of the stuff, like the custodial services growing quite a bit, because they don't want to take that responsibility or risk. They'd rather just someone else do it for them, and they pay a fee for it.
Yeah.
There's some interesting solutions people are coming out with now that still do it in a decentralized way. Like, you could have these smart contract based wallets that incorporate a dead man switch. So you could set in your wallet specific designees that will be able to access your funds from that wallet, but only if you've been inactive for a certain amount of time. So if you've been inactive, let's say you set the inactivity time for 1 year. After 1 year, the address that belongs to your wife or your best friend or whoever you designate will be able to move those funds through that account as if it was theirs. But as long as you're active within a period of a year or less, they won't be able to.
I bet you Craig Wright wishes some of his little business partners had that shit set up.
Oh, man.
All right, gentlemen, we've been an hour in, and I've been notified twice now that I have food waiting for me, and I have not eaten anything yet. But hold on, let me take a quick look at the situation here. Yeah, everything is good. Corey, Patty, Barry, Gitarts. I don't know what it is about that name, man, but it just throws me. I have to keep reading it over and over to make sure that I'm not making it up in my own mind.
You got it.
I've never seen anybody with that name. I don't think you have to worry about anybody impersonating you, man, because I don't think anybody that's not a name you can just make up easily. But look, I like Status. I like what you guys are working on, and I definitely plan to dive in a little bit deeper. I know that I had started looking into the project a long time ago, and I think I liked it, and I was into it. I think I even got some somehow, but I haven't confirmed that. I have to check that wallet, which I haven't checked that in a year, because I have a lot of my old original altcoin holdings on a wallet in a bank. It literally sitting in a safety deposit box. So I haven't checked it, and I don't even have any of the shit written down. I have to go to the bank to look at it. So I can't just pull it up on like Etherroll or something and be like, what do I have? Which probably sounds a little stupid, but anyway. Look, I appreciate you guys coming on and just hanging out for an hour and shooting the shiz. And hopefully everybody, and anybody that's interested in looking deeper, I'm going to actually take this, make it a little bit smaller real quick. You can go to the website, which is status.im. So you can go to status.im. What is IM for, like instant messenger? Like, what is the IM extension? I've never seen that before.
Yeah, basically instant messenger, status.im.
Okay. All right. Cool.
The blog has a lot of the newer stuff, including a lot of this token economics work that me and Barry have been working on to help kind of look at new ways of how to evaluate this stuff or what impact the different use cases will have.
Okay.
And then the S&T utility talks about the things that we're currently doing at the top.
Nice.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on. We didn't even get into a fraction of the stuff that we do at Status, just kind of the idea of what we're trying to do. So
yeah, I think what I might be willing to do is go in and read up on some of this stuff, get a little more educated myself on the project, and then maybe we do this again that's a little more focused on ultimately a lot of the questions that I have that come up in my kind of research on it. I'm so busy with so much stuff. I mean, I was supposed to be launching with the beta of my exchange yesterday. But it looks like that's probably going to be pushed until tomorrow. But in the meantime, I'm like just going back and forth with lawyers, and it's just stupid. Like, one thing I've learned, man, is everything you think is going to take a certain amount of time, double or triple it.
Yeah, we could say the same thing. Maybe V1 from the mobile app's coming soon, but it's been quite a bit of time in terms of getting there.
I completely understand. So look, guys, thanks for joining me. For all of you guys out there in crypto land watching, thank you for joining. I will see you guys again very soon. Check out Status. It's an interesting project, and I'm not bullshitting you. Like I said, this wasn't paid. I had these eyes on because I was interested in what they're doing. And hit the likes, of course. Yes, thank you guys in chat for reminding everybody, because I never remember to beg for that stuff. Until next time, guys, crow your coins, and I'll see you again real soon. Have a good week.
Thanks a lot.